It is a huge pleasure to welcome former Detroit Lions, former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, Charlie Batch. In fact, former Eastern Michigan quarterback as well. And I saw you play actually at Missouri. We're here in Missouri. Saw you play in '97 at Faurot Field at the University of Missouri, man. So we go way back.
Absolutely. I remember that game, man. We took it into the fourth quarter, and unfortunately we weren't able to get it right, but we scared you off for about three quarters.
Sure did. That was a really good Missouri team that wound up pushing Nebraska, the eventual national champion, to the brink, and went to a bowl game and everything. So Charlie, man, how's everything going? I saw you were at the national championship game in frozen Indianapolis. It's even colder than it is here in Missouri there, buddy. But Georgia gets the big win. How about the Bulldogs' performance?
Yes, it was, man. That was impressive to watch. Obviously, that was the first time that I've ever been to a championship game, let alone an SEC game. But, man, the way that their alumni and their fan base came out, man, it was very, very impressive. I was fortunate enough to sit on the winner's side, which was Georgia. So at least I felt like I was with them during that time, even though they may not have known any better. But overall, man, it was a really good experience up in Indianapolis. I'm just glad that they had an indoor facility, that we did not have the weather, the outdoor and the cold and all of that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Clint picked Georgia. I picked Alabama because I thought Jamison Williams was just that dude that was going to make the difference. Unfortunately, he goes down and it becomes a different ball game, and Georgia just kind of rolls them there in the second half, especially in that fourth quarter.
Yes, it was. And that was a difference maker for sure. You can see kind of the game plan from Alabama. It kind of switched there, and then they try to go power control. Then ultimately just say, you want to know what? Nobody's running the football. Yeah. Let's just go ahead and throw it around. It wasn't until that 67-yard run that kind of popped it up and kind of skewed the rushing yards to Georgia's favor. But, man, it was overall, man, watching it on TV was one thing, but, man, just that environment that was in that stadium, I can understand why people bleed SEC football, because it's very impressive.
Yeah, it came down to probably the two best teams in the country, and it bore that out in the playoffs, certainly. And now we kind of turn our focus to the National Football League, where, Charlie, you played for 11 years in Pittsburgh, man, backing up Ben Roethlisberger for a good portion of that, played a lot of meaningful games there. I mean, the Chiefs have already beaten the Steelers 36-10 just a couple weeks ago, but this is the playoffs. It's a different ball game. Mike Tomlin, what a great job he's done just to get this team in there. Let's start there. Mike Tomlin, 15 straight years without a losing season. To me, the most underrated coach in NFL history. Tell us, your thoughts about Mike and just the fact that this team got in there. And, hey, it was a crazy Steelers or a crazy Raiders, Chargers, and finished there, almost knocked them out. But Mike Tomlin gets them there by hook or by crook.
He does. I mean, he's always been that guy that just, always stays even keel regardless of how the season starts. And he's still getting his message across. And I think this proves that he still has control of that locker room, and the players are, buying into the message that he's selling at this point. So it's really cool to kind of see it all start. You can hear his comments even when they started out at 1-3, and now here they are in the playoffs. He looks back and, makes those subtle comments and say, y'all wrote us off when we were running 1-3. And of course, now they're playing that underdog role, and a huge underdog role this week as they get ready for Kansas City. And of course, yes, the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC. Obviously, they're number 2 seed, but what better way for you to get a chance to kind of rebound and show, wait a minute, the first game was a mistake, and hopefully they can use what happened on Monday night with Georgia and Alabama saying, hey, look, the second time around, we had their numbers and we corrected our mistakes. So I know that's why the Steelers are playing that underdog role.
Yeah, that first game, 36-10 for the Chiefs in Week 16, and they rematch here in the playoffs. Talk about kind of what Ben Roethlisberger, you feel like his emotions are going through. We saw his last game at Heinz Field against the Browns, very emotional, of course. And then that huge win against the Ravens, the comeback victory. It looked like maybe you guys couldn't do it. Big Ben, don't ever count him out. He came back. You guys got that victory. And now coming into Arrowhead, you played here yourself. You came in for Ben Roethlisberger when he was knocked out by Derek Johnson in 2009. Just talk about the Arrowhead environment and what this means to Big Ben getting a shot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City is one of my all-time favorite stadiums to play at. Of course, we don't play there all the time, and in Pittsburgh. But, man, the fans are into it, and it's one of those things, man. They're a diehard Chiefs fan, and it's just unbelievable kind of the environment that they have set down there. And of course, when they talk about the loudest outdoor stadium, every bit, there is no pump crowd noise in there. Those fans are really after it. And what a great job by the Chiefs organization to really turn it around and give these fans something to cheer for. And Patrick Mahomes, of course, he's playing lights out and they're scoring a ton of points. Of course, Travis Kelce didn't play last go around, so that's going to be a challenge for the Steelers because they've had problems with tight ends in the past. So it's going to be something that's very important for the Steelers to control that time of the possession and try to get that running game going to try to limit the opportunities there on the other side with Patrick Mahomes.
Well, kind of handicap this AFC for us. To me, there's been so much parity. We've seen teams like Tennessee go lose games to the Texans, the Jets. Here they are, the 1 seed. The Chiefs start off 3-4, struggling defensively, giving up big plays in the running game and in the passing game. Patrick Mahomes going through his own struggles, throws, I think, 9 interceptions through the first 7 games. But the Chiefs have kind of leveled out a bit, couldn't get that 1 seed. But when you look around, the Buffalo Bills come back and win the AFC East. They're going to be a factor. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, my goodness, the white hot combination of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and that whole offensive group. How do you handicap this AFC right now? You talk about the Chiefs being the team to beat, but man, to me, it's almost like flip a coin in a lot of these situations here.
Absolutely. And this is one game here or there is one of the ones that you're kind of kicking yourself. But the Chiefs say, hey, if we win one of these games, we're sitting at home this week versus having to play. And Tennessee was fortunate enough to win the game that they needed to get the number 1 seed. But it just kind of reminds me, kind of brings up that conversation as it relates to, would you rather sit the first week or would you rather play and keep the momentum going? And that's essentially what Kansas City has at this point. And I think this is an opportunity for them to keep the ball rolling a little bit. Of course, a lot of that is going to hinder on how Hill is actually, able to go. And I think this is something that, when you look back and see how everything else is unfolding, man, AFC is up in the air at this point. Anything can happen. But, man, this is going to be exciting because there's no clear one-cut favorite team here in the AFC.
Well, what are you expecting kind of out of this Pittsburgh Steelers offense? They may need to rely a little more on Najee Harris in the run game. I mean, you see kind of what's going on with Ben Roethlisberger. His arm strength isn't there in his final season here. But the Chiefs have had trouble in kind of the downfield passing game. We saw what Jamar Chase was able to do. But is Ben going to be able to push the ball down the field to Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson to take advantage of that, or are they going to have to rely more on that run game?
Well, I think they're going to probably have to rely more on the run game, and I think this is going to be important to really see where Harris is at this point because he injured his elbow early into the Baltimore game. He missed a lot of time and then came back in that fourth quarter to really get it going. He's missed some time this week with practice, but fully expect him to be ready to go for this particular game. But I think when you just look at where the Steelers are at, they're going to have to take advantage of, like you mentioned, that downfield passing. But that has been a weakness for the Steelers this year. They have not thrown the ball. And when you look at their passing charts, they don't use the middle of the field. So if you're a defensive coordinator, you're going to say, we know because 90% of the time this regular season, you did not throw in the middle of the field. So they're going to limit those options. And then now you see it's going to put more stress on those corners because essentially it's going to be go routes, that 50-50 ball that we all like to call it. And you hope that it goes the Steelers' way. But that's going to be something that really is going to be talked upon and just see kind of how they actually, are able to now go back and forth as it relates to what they're looking to do. But to me, it truly buys into the fact that you have to control that time of possession. You have to eliminate it and try to hit those plays down the field. And it's going to be really important for Chase Claypool to get involved because, the attention is going to go to Deontay Johnson. This has to be a big moment in Chase Claypool's first playoff game to show if you want to be that elite receiver, the whole country is watching. Go out here and prove it.
Well, Charlie, you're a 2-time Super Bowl champion right there alongside in the same quarterback room with Ben Roethlisberger for 9 seasons, I think it was. Just talk to us about the man the Ben is. I think that to me, one of the toughest players to ever play this game. You think about all the times that, how gimpy he would be. And he always rose to the occasion, still doing it to this day as he nears 40. Just tell us about the man, Ben Roethlisberger, what it was like being his teammate and being in that room for him for 9 years.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the ones that you could kind of see his body of work. And he's one of those guys that's more of a visual guy. He doesn't need to sit there and look at plays over and over again, 15, 20 times. He gets it. And he really worked hard in understanding that playbook and building it up to the point where now he owned it. And you can see now his career kind of take off, especially from 2007, 2008. And it wasn't until 2013, 2014, somewhere around there when he threw for 4,952 yards that people outside of Pittsburgh was like, wow, this guy can actually throw the football. He's been doing it his entire career. But I think now when you look at where he's at, over 63,000 yards passing, and now with the respect that he's getting, he's essentially in all top 5 passing categories. So it's impressive to see where he's at. But I know the one thing that hinders him at this point, it's been 10 seasons since he's been back to that Super Bowl. And of course, we lost that against the Green Bay Packers. So when you haven't got there in 10 years, trust me, this is at the top of the radar, especially as everybody's speculating that this could potentially be his last game. And you can see all Chiefs fans right now are all kind of making sure, hey, last game for sure, that they're coming from their end. And all Steeler fans are saying, hey, we're just trying to go one step at a time and trying to extend Ben's season.
Yeah, we've seen some images floating around. This is Ben Roethlisberger's retirement party. We're throwing it at Arrowhead Sunday night. Be there, be square. But we'll see what the Steelers have in store. Is like you mentioned earlier, Tyreek Hill in that last game seemed a little bit injured with his heel. Travis Kelce was limping off the field at the end of the game into the tunnel. That could be a big key for these Steelers, and that defense. I think they need big games out of, obviously, TJ Watt, probably your defensive player of the year. And then Cam Hayward is going to have to come up big, and you don't really have to question him. He always brings a great performance. What's this defense looking to do against this Kansas City Chiefs offense?
Yeah, well, you know, all the attention is going to go to TJ Watt, rightfully so. 21.5 sacks. Hopefully they changed it to give him the actual record. Which was pretty cool to watch, especially when he missed 2.5 games this year. So, I mean, what his body of work has done, you know, that's going to be a focus on the Chiefs' behalf to know where he's at and where he's lining up. But in the middle, man, Cam Hayward, he is really dominating up front, Pro Bowl caliber player, and proving that he still belongs in this league. But now it's up to the rest of the guys. Okay, what is Alex Highsmith going to do on the other side? And if I'm Alex Highsmith, I'm thinking to myself, this has to be a game that I show up. Why? Because Melvin Ingram is on the other side. They traded him away from here in that big play that he made last week. Everybody's talking about it here in Pittsburgh as we're all sitting back saying, we could have used that here. But either way, I want to see where Alex Highsmith is and where he steps up, knowing that the guy that was traded away is on the other side, knowing to look to make plays against Ben Roethlisberger. So those are two guys that I'm looking to watch.
You guys didn't want a hostage in Melvin Ingram. That's what he.
It's one of the things like, you know, you're like, oh, you're like, you know, and I mean, people laugh at the quote, volunteers, we want volunteers, not hostages. I'm like, nobody is out here playing the game for free. So nobody is a volunteer. So let's start there. So I get it when it comes to that. But yes, when you look at the manner, and a lot of that just stemmed from conversations, and we weren't part of the conversation that took place between Melvin and Steelers organization at that point. But essentially it went probably somewhat to this point, hey, you're going to have a chance to compete. That obviously didn't materialize because Alex Smith actually ascended in the manner that made him say, now it makes you expendable. And when Melvin Ingram saw that, listen, that's fine. Respectfully, I like him as a person. Cool. Let me do my thing and extend my career. Unfortunately, I'm sure the Steelers didn't think that they would be playing the Chiefs twice this year after trading him.
Yeah. Very true. Well, I know people, when they look at you, they think about your time in Pittsburgh and a winning organization and, you know, the championships that were won. But I got to speak up for my friend Noah here. I didn't know if he was going to go there, but you're, of course, the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, man. Some great players on some of those teams. A lot of people forget about that. I know things didn't always go great there in Detroit, as that they still continue not to. But my God, some of those players you played with, you know, from Johnny Morton, who wound up coming to Kansas City. You know, you think about Herman Moore. I know that's like Noah's favorite receiver of all time. I mean, James Stewart. You even played with our good friend Brock Olivo, who played against you in that 97 game at Mizzou. I mean, take us back to those Lions days. And I didn't know if Noah was going to go there, so I got to get this in for him.
No, it was cool. And I mean, obviously, Brock, man, I played with him up in Detroit, man, awesome person. And of course, we talked about the Missouri game a lot during our Lions days. But I think when you look at where you're at, man, Herman Moore, great friend of mine. I love throwing to him. You know, I caught him at the end of his career, similar to Barry Sanders in the final season when I was a rookie. So I thought I would be playing with those guys a lot more. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But, man, it was really cool to play there. I started my career in Detroit. Unfortunately, they haven't won a championship since 1957. So it's tough to win there. So when you leave out, man, that could literally put a little, you know, dent into your ego because you think, man, I'm not a good player. And then you go somewhere else and you're able to extend your career for 11 seasons. So when you just kind of look at everybody kind of unfold, look at just where Jared Goff was at a couple of years ago. He's in the Super Bowl, possibly with a chance to win it. And all of a sudden he gets to Detroit and they're like, he can't throw the ball down the field. So it's just one of those things that they have to do a better job within the Lions organization to really get to where they're going. And of course, now on the flip side, Matthew Stafford leaves Detroit and he now has the Rams in prime position.
Right.
So there are things that they need to work on within the Lions organization. Unfortunately, you know, there's a fan of them. I hope they get it together, but you know, that's ultimately up to them.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that they're like, hey, Jared Goff, come on over. By the way, Kenny Golladay, get out of here. Goodbye. Your number one receiver, your hopes and dreams. That's out the door here. But I mean,
think about in the manner that they got rid of him. They said, yeah, you can go to Detroit, but we're giving picks to get rid of you. So
yeah,
right.
That is like, okay.
Do you keep an eye on the Lions, and where do you think they are here with Dan Campbell? Do you think he's the right guy to lead them? Where do you see this line? It just seems like they can never get it right. And when I thought they were headed in a right direction back in 2000, then they hire Marty Mornhinweg and Matt Millen, and it just continues to keep kind of failing there in Detroit. Yeah,
it's tough, you know. And I thought the mistake that they made was really letting Jim Caldwell go. I I mean, this is a guy who went 9-7. You get him to the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, you're not the right guy." And then you bring Matt Patricia in, and you see where everything is unfolding at this point. Now, Dan Campbell, on the other hand, you can see his team was in the game, majority of the season. And of course, I got a first chance of seeing him in that November game when they ended up tying 16-16, if I'm not mistaken, during that game. But that was one of those games where you're like, okay, maybe he has them going in the right direction. But unfortunately, when you finish in the manner that you do, fans don't have patience. But they're going to have patience with Dan Campbell only because they signed him to a 6-year deal. A lot of owners only sign on a 4-year deal. So I guarantee you that owner is thinking to himself, I am not firing you, allowing you to go into retirement with 5 years on your contract. You're going to work your butt off here. So hopefully they allow Dan Campbell to now put the players in place and make those decisions in free agency. They have the number 2 pick in the draft. So this is going to be something, a point of emphasis to get that fan base back excited again.
Well, Charlie, I know that you're still very much involved. I want everyone to make sure they follow you at Charlie Batch 16. We're certainly hoping for some fireworks this weekend, man. This is going to be fun. We've got 2 games Saturday, right? A couple games on Sunday, a game on Monday. We're just going to make a weekend of this. College football may be over, but it's just getting started here in the NFL. And we're going to ride this thing all the way out to mid-February now because of that 18th week. Extend some more football games. I guess we'll just live with it, right, guys?
Then I think everybody wants to get to that point. And if you just looked at the information that's coming out of league offices today, I think it was 17 of the 20 games had the most watched games this year. So people are paying attention to it. That's why you have Super Wildcard Weekend. And I promise you, those ratings will be out the roof, especially Sunday night between Chiefs Nation and Steelers Nation. That may be one of the highest rated games all year.
Yeah, and just one last thing from me here, Charlie. You guys have one of the few black head coaches in the National Football League, and Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches, if not the best, rivaling a Bill Belichick and Andy Reid. He's right there in the conversation. But the Dolphins, surprisingly, shockingly, get rid of Brian Flores. Where does that put us here in just kind of the minority coaches search for a head coach? Because we see what's going on. There's not many candidates being brought up enough. Like you said, Jim Caldwell, you mentioned him earlier. He's getting some playback, and hopefully he finds a job. And hopefully Brian Flores.
Eric Bieniemy could be here to Minnesota, Yeah,
you're hoping that the guys get an opportunity. All guys are, they're not asking to give you anything. It's just trying to get that interview and make it a sincere interview to that point. So when you add the likes of Todd Bowles, you talk about Byron Leftwich, Eric Bieniemy, you just want that opportunity. So hopefully they do get it. The NFL revamp rules to not say, hey, your season has to be over before the interview process happens. So hopefully that helps expedite some of these things. But either way, it's long overdue, and you hope that, these things get right. And of course, everybody was kind of shocked at Brian Flores to sit back and say, wow, you fired him? Like after this particular point, and he turned him around, especially when you have a young quarterback in that manner that seemed like he was getting it together, but now he's going to have to start over. So it was a head scratcher to many. It probably has to be less than 10% agreed than what Mr. Ross down there did with the Dolphins. But either way, 90% of the country all think the same thing. They're scratching your heads on why. We don't know that answer, but it's just a bad look for the league.
Well, we'll see what happens. We got 25% of the league currently has got a vacancy right now. So there's going to be some moving and shaking, kind of like in a small town when a couple of people get divorced. You just pair off with whoever's available. It's going to be kind of crazy. These teams scrambling with 8 openings. So we'll see what happens. Charlie, you're the best, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Best of luck. And we'll see how the Steelers-Chiefs game plays out. Hoping for a good one on Sunday night, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, fellas.
You bet,
All right.
Charlie. Thanks.
Take care.